Welcome to the Intuitive Hour with psychic medium, author, and intuitive life coach, Michelle Beltran. The Intuitive Hour will empower you to learn how to magnify your intuitive voice. Listen in and expand your understanding of what it means to be psychic and how to awaken, amplify, and trust your inner voice.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Intuitive Hour. Awaken your inner voice. All right. Thank you so much for being with me here today as we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, psychic, intuitive, and so forth. Today on tap, we're talking about mediumship. First, though, I want to offer a gigantic thank you and appreciation and gratitude to all of you. We've got over 400,000 downloads of the Intuitive Hour. I'm so delighted and excited to see this. We have thousands of listeners each week, 3,000 downloads per week, if not more. That's just exceptional. I am so enjoying creating this material for you and sharing it and teaching you, and I am even more overjoyed that you are here listening and learning and expanding your intuitive and psychic mind. So thank you. Big gratitude. Again, I'm happy you're here. Let's go ahead and begin with the topic of mediumship. And we'll start today with the 7 stages of grief and what that's about and how to navigate that, having some semblance of understanding of those 7 stages is essential, whether you are receiving a medium reading or you are a practicing or learning, developing, or even veteran medium. So we do have to take extra care and precaution when we are in these kinds of sessions, mediumship readings, of course, and particularly on these in this topic of understanding the grief. When we have a spirit who has recently departed, any time between months to a year or so, that loss is especially poignant. Everyone, as we know, moves through grief differently. Someone may have a loss that is ongoing 10 years later. Some pass through the loss period quickly in a number of months. As an intuitive, you'll want to get a good feel about a person's grief, where they are in those stages. There are 7 of them. You can do some research online, but please do acquaint yourself with the various stages and what they are. It's a good idea to ask a client that you're working with, if you're offering medium sessions, to wait 2 or 3 months before having a reading after a major loss. You want to avoid having a medium reading with someone right after the death of a loved one. This is because we don't want the medium reading to take place of the grieving. We want this person to pass through these grief stages, if you will. This is mostly for this time frame that we allow is mostly for the client, not necessarily for spirit, although they too are adjusting and transitioning. The client seeking the reading, the person seeking the medium session, will need time to pass through the shock of their loss. If you partake in a medium reading before the client is ready, this person is going to be extremely emotional through the entire process, and that makes it difficult for energies and the flow of accurate information to come in. Not impossible, but it is a challenge. You don't want to put yourself in this situation where the emotion is so overpowering. If this happens, I want to suggest, as kindly as you can, to request a rescheduling with the client. If you sense a deep drop into emotion that's so overwhelming, just reschedule. come back to it another time. I'm not suggesting that it's not okay to show emotion. That's wonderful and good. Emotion and expression is releasing. We want that. But I am suggesting that if emotions are so strong that your client, or even you, if you're the one in the reading receiving it, if you cannot hear what's being said and the emotions overwhelm you, then it's best to reschedule. You have, in this instance, dropped down into that real deep heart space. We need everyone to be clear and in the center of their head. If you have been following podcasts, you know we have an episode here talking about being in the center of your head. You might review that. I will add that I have communicated with spirits and souls the same day of their passing, and most souls just want to let their loved ones know they're safe and happy in these early times. It is possible that spirit will come in sooner than 2 or 3 months. In fact, it's possible that spirit will begin communicating before they even leave. In the days before they're ready to transition, they may actually come through in a session. So do be mindful of that. All right, so the takeaway regarding this portion of our episode: familiarize yourself with the grief stages. Be mindful of your emotional space during that session. And also be mindful of not rushing right into a medium session and allowing some time to pass so that you and your loved one are ready for the best and most positive situation and reading to take place. All right, let's talk a little bit about passing over on the other side. Just this morning, I received a call, a tragic accident over the 4th of July weekend where a husband and wife were transitioned to the other side after a jet ski accident. This is never a fun thing to hear, but it is part of life's journey, and it happens. Death is probably the most difficult challenge a human must go through during the course of their life. Some will never recover from such a painful loss. Others will forge forward, getting through it as best they can, and in time beginning to find peace and healing and love in their lives once again. When working with someone who has lost a loved one dear to them, we must use our wisdom, our compassion, and our love to help them, of course. I'm not telling you anything you don't know there. They're seeking a medium, though, because they're in terrible pain and they want so badly to feel their loved one once again and process that loss. One of the things that comes up during these times, and that came up this morning as I interacted and met with this client regarding this tragic loss, was the question of why, and how do they navigate understanding such a tragedy. So this is such an opportune time to discuss this very important question. I wanted to address it today. One of the things that I would like for you to all understand when this sort of thing happens is that some souls have an actual, their timing is complete. And we here living say to ourselves, well, how is that possible? How could they possibly go so soon? Aren't they deprived a long lifetime? Aren't we supposed to live until we're 70 or 80? Well, not everyone is. Some souls absolutely choose to go back after 5 years, or 10 years, or 50 years. And indeed, we're here living, finding that impossible. But it isn't. It is their choice, and they have chosen to go back. Think of it as those individuals have built into their soul plan or their blueprint that this is exactly how they wanted it to be. It was their choice. Second, I want to point out that very advanced souls, very wise old souls, will do something exactly like this. Leave early. Leave at a time that seems impossible to us. They choose that exit point. I find the same logic is true with a developmentally disabled person or someone who has chosen what seems to us to be very difficult life circumstances, perhaps confined to a wheelchair for their life. Those individuals also chose that, and that's very often a wise old soul who's lived many lives that would choose such a journey. Also, we have what are called option lines. Option lines are junctures, points in life that we have sort of reserved and planned before we came here to exit if we choose. They're sometimes at about 10 years, at about 30 years, and 50 or 60 years. And we put those option lines in place. They become options where if we desire at that time in our life, we can pass to the other side. Last, remember that when spirit passes, they have not left. Their soul is thriving. They have simply changed form. Indeed, their earthly body is no longer, but they've only changed form and they're still here for you. The easiest way they come in is through your dreams. They will also come, of course, in a medium session. So, because their soul is still thriving, they are now on the other side, and they can actually support you and help you even more. They have that bird's eye perspective. They know what's ahead. They can come in and guide you if you will ask. Very often, when a spirit passes, while they don't become our spirit guides, they will often pass sooner to get on the other side to support you. So, when you're working with someone who has lost a loved one, or you have lost a loved one, consider these aspects of why. Okay, moving forward here, I'd like to talk about when you are working with clients who sense the presence of a recently departed loved one, or you have experienced a loss recently. Always know that Spirit is trying to communicate with you and get messages to you if you will listen. As we know, this is easiest to receive through meditation or dreams. Our loved ones are very often bombarding us with messages. They are mostly missed, however, because our left brain takes over and we rationalize. For example, you have a thought about your loved one. That thought is your loved one very often coming in saying hello, not your thought. They brought that to you. So consider that the next time this happens with you. I notice that some clients refuse to notice any signs at all because this would take them out of their denial stage. We talked about the stages of grief. Denial is one of them. This takes them out of that, and they may not be ready. If a sign from a loved one is noticed, that would mean their loved ones really are gone. So that's difficult. This may be too much for the client at that time. During the reading, try to get evidential information, actual facts that will give your client the confidence that their loved ones are present. You might have them pay attention to pictures on the walls that might have been moved, things out of place or misplaced, hearing a song on the radio that reminds them of their loved one. Anything out of the norm. Animals also can be messengers. One of the most powerful ways that spirit could come through is through electricity. So TVs turning off and on, computers, lights flickering, money or change found on the ground at unique times. Most things that remind you of your loved one, memories. This is your loved one trying to get through, even the mere thought of them. All right, everyone. A very powerful episode today on the topic of mediumship. I hope you have enjoyed it. This has been very full of lots of instruction and guidance for you. It's a good time to come to a close. Please do join me next week. We will continue this discussion. I'll be talking about how to communicate with new spirits who do not communicate well. We'll talk about sensations in your body in terms of receiving mediumship communication and how to discern that and its meaning. We'll talk about asking images and symbols that you receive, dissecting them, and asking further questions of symbols and images that you receive from spirit. We'll also be talking about clients who sense the presence of departed loved ones. And finally, we'll segue into using your spirit guides to guide you in a medium session. So lots more ahead on this topic of mediumship and instruction, working with clients, and or if you're receiving a medium reading. Okay, it's been a pleasure and honor. I'm always delighted you're with me. And as always, for any comments or questions, please do reach out by calling 800-607-1770. I'll always welcome your calls, and or emailing at mbeltran@michellebeltran.com. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week, and I look forward to meeting again next time.
Thanks for listening to the Intuitive Hour with Michelle Beltran. If you like what you heard, please share our podcast with a friend, and be sure to visit michellebeltran.com to get Michelle's popular Develop Your Clairvoyance ebook.